great. So welcome
Um,
everybody to our advisory board. Do you want to start? I'm sorry I jumped in, but if you
no,
want to,
that's okay. I have
um,
just a couple announcements.
go ahead. Go to it.
All right, so just for our board and our advisory council only meets twice a year, so it's a combined event. But we do have some board changes, and since it's being recorded, then I can say this and people will hear it later maybe. So we have Safa Sadadine is going off of the board. And she was very instrumental these last 4 or 5 years, really getting us started. As she started as an intern here, she came to Milwaukee and then stayed with us for all this time. So we're very grateful for all that she's done for us and wish her well in new adventures. And then we're also shifted. Marty Rayala and Rebecca Willett are both moving to the advisory council, just because they're still valuable as roles as that, but they don't want to play the same role as board members. So we shifted those, but then we also have Madeline Garcia, who was one of our Merrily Row award recipients in the first round back in
22.
22.
Yeah.
And so she we were like, well, okay, well, we might hear from her again. And then like now 4 years later, all of a sudden she's like, hey, I'm coming to Madison. And I was so excited. She's so close. So we've met for breakfast, and I plan to meet with her more often. So Madeline is studying here at UW Madison for her PhD program in education. And maybe you want to tell a little bit about what your program is?
Yeah, thank you, Karen. I remember the first time we met personally, there was a warning of
Oh, yeah.
extremely cold weather.
Yeah, back
And
in November.
like
Yeah.
just another time I'm meeting you, it's also
Yeah.
a extreme weather. Anyway, so I'm currently on my first year as a PhD student in curriculum and instruction, and I'm working with my advisor who is into media literacy education and civic engagement. So we're working on several projects that talks about political information with teachers, teaching the elections, etc. So I'm really excited to be part of this and also speaking with you and building connections with you guys. Thank you so much.
We are happy to have you. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. And then the only other announcement I have is about our Journal of Media Literacy. The next issue is in production as we speak, lots of editing going on. And it's titled McLuhan Mosaic, and it's going to feature our editors are Neil Anderson, Carol Arcus, who's here with us, and Antonio Lopez and Andrew McLuhan. So, and that's where we had, I think, our last spring's discussion sort of launched some of these ideas and feeds into the making of the issue. And so now in April that will come out, but we're continuing that with our work with Paolo today, and then also we had two blogs recently that are very much related. So we really highly recommend you check out our website, IC4ML.org. And if you're not on our newsletter subscriber list, please subscribe. And Thomas Cooper just did a review of Paulo's book, so that's available. And then before that was Alessandro Martinisi wrote about why McLuhan is in his classroom yet. So it's a wonderful piece that ties AI to McLuhan and his work, current work. So we're excited to kind of bring these ideas together. So, Belina, you have another announcement before we get started?
Just a couple quick things. One is obviously the book. I would highly recommend if you haven't picked it up. I have it on my desk. I also wanted to mention another book that I had been at a conference recently that they mentioned quite a bit, which was AI Snake Oil. I don't know how many of you are aware of this one, but I thought I would throw it in there. This became like a really hot book at the conference. When I actually talked to they had a book vendor there. She said this was the one that was sold out in there at the end of the actual conference, which I thought was really interesting. So very excited to have both of our speakers, Paolo and Michael, today. But just quick thing about the conference, as all of you know, the process for reviewing and all of that has been done. We had over 300 submissions. Oddly enough, I'm still getting submissions, if you can believe it. And it's wonderful. Someone said to me, it's a wonderful problem to have. It is, but I actually had to cut quite a bit because we are limited in terms of it's a space thing in part, but not as much as about the quality of the conference and what we want in terms of people who are there. So we are trying to, the goal is just to be at 160. So it was a real interesting thing. There's several of you I know who are in process of getting things together and so forth. So it looks to be a really amazing conference. I won't give any more announcements other than that, but I will say there are some exciting things to come, and I will be rolling out emails and messages, and we'll put stuff out there as they come. Other than that, I think that covers. Oh, for any of you who have not put yourself on a blog list for the coming year, please feel free to let Karen and I know. We've appreciated all the ones that we received. Ramsey's will be going up for the newsletter.
It
Yes.
already went out.
It already went. So there you go. Oh, that's right. You gave it to me already. Sorry. This has been a week of a lot of emails. I still feel like January is such a catch-up month when you've been off for a couple of weeks. And then that's pretty much it. So Karen, I'll throw it back to you.
All right, and so we are going to start with Paolo presenting, and then we'll have discussion time, and so I'll kind of try to keep track of time, and then we'll move to Michael's presentation. So take it away, Paolo.
All right, thank you very much. How long shall I speak for?
10, 15 minutes, whatever. These guys are anxious to get their hands on
All
you.
right. Oh, okay.
So,
Okay. If I have 10, 15 minutes, maybe I can share some slides. Okay. So
yes, by all means.
I published this book. It's called The Generative Knowledge, Think, Learn, and Create with AI. But for today's special occasion, I wanted to focus on three main things: the good, the bad, and the ugly of artificial intelligence. And so the book is mostly offering an optimistic yet critical take on the implications of artificial intelligence on knowledge making, knowledge production, and the implications of AI on our intellectual life. However, there are many concerns about, even if, again, I take an optimistic approach, there are many concerns in the field. So I'm going to cover a bit of bad and ugly today, okay? And then for the good, you have to read my book, okay? So the ugly, which is what I call the Deloitte effect. So you may be familiar with this news. So essentially reports using AI, so hallucinations, false information, all these things. But again, this is what I call not just an epic fail of AI. We cannot blame the technology in this case. We should blame people. This is not, again, a problem of artificial intelligence. This is a problem of human stupidity. So there's people that did not simply check their sources, that over-relied on AI. And so I call it the Deloitte effect. So the human stupidity in not checking and not providing source materials, which is kind of the same issue, which I call the three-arm problem, not the three-body, but the three-arm problem. Again, this is new, this is real. Essentially, a couple of 3 years ago in Toronto, there was a real campaign for mayor, and thankfully that mayor didn't make it. However, you see there is something weird there, so the three-arm problem, and another example of human stupidity. And again, these people didn't check what AI created. And so I wanted to dive deeper into this three-arm problem. And in fact, here you see the actual presentation of my book with three arms. So if you pay attention, you will see my three-arm problem. So is AI making us dumber or smarter? And I'm going to cover, firstly, some myths about AI. The idea that AI will replace human jobs, that will become sentient and rebel to some extent, will kill them off. and then understand, because there is no understanding, then there is no knowing. Well, even the clock doesn't know what time is it. Well, it helps us to organize our entire life. And the problem of authenticity is not a new issue in the digital world, but even before, the entire history of propaganda is based on this issue. It's not new. Untrustworthy outcomes, that's another kind of misunderstanding. Of course, there are hallucinations, biases, and so on, but this is becoming a reason for concerns. Then there are two misunderstood problems I'm not going to cover. By the way, sorry, I hear some noise in there should be, okay, perfect, thank you very much. And two other problems: electricity or water consumption. Other industries consume way more than all the data sets and AI put together. And water consumption, well, if you play golf, you should be more concerned, because water for golf courses is way more consuming than AI needed for water needed for AI. But again, putting these things aside, essentially there is a paradox. If you check the practical evidence, experimental and empirical research undertaken in the field, you see there's two tales, these two different compelling realities that are emerging from practical research. On one hand, there is a positive effect of embracing AI into education, learning, thinking in general. So on one hand, there is a cognitive augmentation, but on the other hand, there are negative implications. So what's the truth? How can we manage this, paradox, this two different realities that are emerging from practical evidence? So my answer is easy. So because there are both evidences of positive and negative effects, the difference is how we embrace it, how we adopt it, how we use AI as a cognitive partner. And so I'm going to quickly review this diagnosis in terms of the potential negative implications, the fact that the illusion of knowledge, the confidence fallacy, we feel very confident, the automation bias, a very important bias, language flattening, fluency trap, over-reliance. I will quickly cover this. So the illusion of knowledge, it's an important issue. So we think we overestimate, right, what the knowledge that we are gaining, right? There's also a kind of illusion of invulnerability. So we gain confidence to some extent. And that's a very important trap. When using AI, we again confuse competence with confidence, right? Because the usage of AI gives us more confidence in creating, producing contents of all kinds. That mistake can be very easy. So to really, again, mistaking confidence for competence. And competence, of course, is becoming more and more important. Only in the hands of experts, these tools can really generate new knowledge. Without knowledge, and that's the first principle of generative knowledge, there are other principles in the book, but the first principle of generative knowledge states it takes knowledge to create a new knowledge. And so that's an important trap, and we should again put competence first. The automation bias is a well-known bias, even beyond AI usage. But again, when we over-rely on the automation, so the fact that many AI assistants can automate some routine jobs, we tend to, again, mistake automation for judgment. And these are two entirely different things. And so we tend to trust by design, or we put the autopilot, right? And then our judgmental defenses lower. Another problem is the, again, so-called AI slop, the flattening of language. So there is research showcasing that, again, for instance, if you ask, time is the most common metaphor is time is a river, but there are many other examples. And also the flattening in the language. This is not only this is that. Or many verbs, to dwell, to embark, or testaments, or intricacies, all those, again, essentially the flattening of the human language, that is something that we should be concerned. So, again, another possible concern, if you have to choose between these two wonderful dishes, likely the one on the left looks more appealing, right? And that's a trap. So we tend to be fascinated by things that seem right so well appealing, even if maybe the content is the same, it's just a different form. If it looks Italian, so we Italians always talk about food, but if it sounds right, it doesn't mean that it's right. That's the point with many AI generated contents, right? So when wrong sounds right. So the AI, again, this fluency, right? The form of the language that is so fluent, so efficient, so well written, leads to believe that even the content is well written, even the content is, the substance is good. Right? And so this is something that is a reason of concern. Some researchers call that epistemia, right? Like epidemic epistemia. And again, AI can write very well, but again, the fluency of language may mislead us, may take us to think that there is a good substance there, which is something technically explainable. Essentially, it's the regime of plausibility. Everything that those AI language models generate is very plausible, right? They are not deterministic. It's a probabilistic approach. And so there's that fake sense of certainty, right? That is mostly based on the plausibility, not on the diversity of content. And so I would say that once again, the fluency in language as a medium obliterated the message, because we are fascinated by this plausibility, this fluency trap. Probability is another trap, is another aspect that makes these models so fluent to some extent. But because it's the most plausible answer, so the minority views got essentially put aside. And so let's say that probability is like the enemy of possibilities, right? That's very important. And finally, here you see a possible prompt, right? Asking AI to create a concept in astronomy, right? And you see that, of course, that concept can be easily made up. Opacity equal rings in protoplanetary disks. And this sounds very convincing. It's well written. It's well organized. It's, again, structured as a real sense of knowledge. And this is GPT 5.2, the latest model by OpenAI. So this plausibility and the fluency trap can create this kind of issue. Same, if I ask Gemini 3.0 to explain what is this made-up concept created by ChatGPT, and so explain opacity equal rings in protoplanetary disks, you will see that, yeah, there is a descriptive terms, a lot of explanation, not just to make up a concept like ChatGPT did, but to explain a well-known, so to speak, a concept. Then again, because of the regime of plausibility, because even of my prompt, essentially the system, this is Gemini 3.0, got to explain exactly what it is, right? And so we see that we can easily fall into this trap. I asked actually even to generate a rendering of this opacity eco ring. So it's well designed even in terms of its aesthetic appeal, but again, it's entirely made up. And so another over reliance is that we do no longer rely on a list of links in a research like we used to do, but we rely more and more on an AI overview where everything is already given, right? And that creates the problem of sycophancy as well, because the system tends to please, right, the user. So I call it the mirror that always smiles, and another trap we fall. However, there are solutions, and now I'm going to conclude for a bit of solutions. So, for instance, if you ask to this particular gem, the opacity eco rings in protoplanetary disks, right, that fake concept, the answer is I don't know how to answer. The term is not recognized, and you see that this is a better answer. So the solution is easy. I created this non-sycophantic AI. It's just a long prompt that can help the system to question without being sycophantic, so without pleasing the actual users. And another experiment, if I have an idea, right, you may be familiar with the gigantic sculpture of a dog shaped from a balloon. This is the famous Jeff Koons artwork. But the system says, oh, this is a strong idea, a gigantic balloon. Again, even if it's a well-known idea. Same DeepSeek, wonderful idea, fantastic. So this is sycophancy. I will say that in this case, Anthropic, Claude, says, well, you're describing something that already exists. So in this case, Anthropic was not, Claude was not sycophantic. That was the actual sculpture, very, very, very well known. And so if you want to try the non-sycophantic AI, which actually said that the gigantic sculpture is not an original idea. So eventually, with that specific prompt, the system was able to say that that was Jeff Koons. And so you can use the QR code to access this gem, right, with Gemini 3.0. And so, again, to conclude, generative knowledge is that form of knowledge that creates new knowledge, and that's my optimistic take. So AI is giving an opportunity to create a new knowledge, and so this is fantastic. And the first principle of generative knowledge states that it takes new knowledge to create new knowledge. So I really advocate for a stronger competency and expertise in order to leverage these tools, master and then delegate it, and using AI as a cognitive partner. That said, there are, maybe I can share the slides, but a few other principles that I find important, because we need friction to learn better, using AI as a compass, and then essentially mapping and then finding our own path, right? So using AI to expand the possibilities, but then we take the responsibility for taking a specific path and decide. The path must be tracked, so in terms of understanding the process. Speaking of the process, again, there are a few principles that are stated in the book. The attention to context, not just content, the attention to the process, not just the product, and attention to the evaluation, not just production. So evaluation is becoming more important because AI is giving us a way to produce. So evaluation is becoming more important. The prologue of the book is the famous match between Lee Sedol and AlphaGo. You may be familiar with this important match. The computer won eventually with this fantastic move 37, and that's usually how the story is told. But in my book, I focus on another move, which is the move made by the human, by Lee Sedol, and it's a human move, and that move was possible because the computer was able to really challenge this world champion to overcome his limits, right? And that's my take. Because of AI, because AI is so good at so many tasks that we used to do as humans, we can raise the bar and jump even higher, overcoming our own limits. And so this and more is on the book. I also started a community. It's called Generative Thinkers on Substack, where I share some materials from the book. And so again, I hope this very quick and short presentation can inspire a bit of reasoning and open to a conversation. Thank you.
Thank
Wow.
you so much.
Yeah. That was fantastic. I actually wanted you to slow down a little because I was like, I want to grab more. But that was
Yeah. Usually I do this in 2 hours. I
yes.
condense it in 10 minutes. That's not the best approach. It's better to take everything out and then only focus on a couple of things. But again, I wanted to share them all, but you know that it was zipped.
It was fantastic. No, Paolo, that was amazing. I really appreciate it. It made me think about a lot of different things because I actually sat through another AI thing yesterday. So this has been wonderful. But what I want to do is open it up to all of you for questions for Paolo, and follow up for anything that he's brought up, or if you want to discuss with him, this is your opportunity. Renee, do you want to go? Your thing's open.
Oh, sure. How'd you know that? There's so much. It's wonderful. So I've been working on whether or not AI will become sentient. And in today's, I just saw this recently that Anthropic had updated Claude just in case the chatbot has consciousness. This constitution, which I'm not totally familiar with, but what's in the constitution. Where do you go on that issue? What do you think about AI growing not only as with us in charge, of course, but with them in charge, or with their learning, with their ability to become sentient, or
Yeah, absolutely. All right. First of all, a bit of context on that comment on that document circulated in the past few days. It's a constitution intended for the very model, so for Claude. It's like a huge prompt. Okay, it's a huge prompt that is embedded now, it will be embedded into Claude to essentially put some ethical guardrails on how Claude would behave in terms of touching on sensitive topics or other sensitive topics like this. So essentially, there's nothing new in terms of this ethical guardrails that are set by design in these models. ChatGPT, Gemini, they all have this. But why this is important, why this statement by Anthropic is important, not just because there are these ethical guardrails in the usage of the model, but because they declared publicly and officially what kind of ethical guardrails they are embedding into the model. So again, we knew that they were, because again, if you ask ChatGPT, I want to kill Paolo Granata, they will not tell you how to kill another human, right? So, but again, we knew that there were ethical boundaries, but now it's a statement. It's more transparent, and it's there in terms of again to better understand how these models are set in the interaction with the users. And that's one question. Second question, however, is that this idea of a sentiency or the intelligence of the models and so on is part of a big narrative that all these companies are fostering in order to sell their products, to gain more funds and more capitals. AGI, artificial general intelligence, is near and near and near. And so that's a big narrative that is a good selling point for their endeavors. But practically speaking, we know that firstly, AI is a wonderful machine, but there is a switch You can always switch off. You can always, there must be someone that pushes the button, and that, after all, the responsibility is of the human being. And secondly, practically speaking, this is just statistics and probabilistic stochastic methods. It's a huge computation of the most likely word to follow. And so it's just mathematics, equations, statistics, computer power. And so there is at all no logic to some extent. Logic was embedded into the very first attempts in creating artificial intelligence back in the 60s. But then eventually the shortcut to reach this extent of apparent intelligence is just statistics, and that's an important part. I'll give you one example. AI, any model, cannot lie. When they will learn how to consciously lie, there will be maybe a problem, but they cannot lie. Hallucinations are not lies, are not and are not even mistakes. And hallucination is not a mistake. Hallucination is exactly how these things work, how these models work. So they give you the most plausible answer. It's not again, even hallucination is not a good term, but it's not a mistake and it's not a lie. These systems don't know how to lie. And so to lie, it's a really human to some extent. That's why there's no conscious and no intentionality, no consciousness in terms of conscious decisions and intentional decisions. But it's a very big narrative that helps creating the buzz, that helps creating the attention. And I will say that even a Nobel Prize like Jeff Hinton, who shared some concerns about the potential implications of AI taking over and so on, didn't help at all to really understand how the systems work. And again, firstly, there is a switch, you can turn it off, and there is a bunch of statistics, and there's nothing even intelligent like an ant or any other. So, and again, it's also difficult to, I mean, I'll stop here, the comparison with the human intelligence. So there's also this, there's an anthropocentric approach in comparing to the human intelligence, but human intelligence is different. And there are other forms of intelligence in this planet and maybe in the universe, but comparing to the human intelligence is another, again, trick, is another expedient to better sell these products, not just to the regular public, but to investors that are investing in these systems.
Thank you for that incredible answer. The only thing I could think of, though, just to counter for 1 second, is HAL in the computer HAL in that wonderful film. Now I'm blocking on it, where they're on the spaceship. Help me out. And it was made in 1968. It's where the computer says, no, you can't shut me off. Of course.
Yeah, 2001 Space Odyssey. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. In any case, thank you. I hope you're right.
Carol, go ahead.
Oh, is Renee, is she finished?
Oh, yes, I'm totally.
Oh, okay. No, a slightly different topic, but thank you for that, Paolo, because what you did was you triggered a question in my teacher head immediately. I see something like that, your astronomy question, which I actually had to put a question on the chat to find out this was fake, right?
Yeah.
Because
well,
I would
was
not
running,
know.
maybe I didn't explain well. What I did, yeah, it was simple. Firstly,
Totally.
I asked the ChatGPT to create a fake astronomy concept, so to create it.
Okay.
And actually, it's very creative, and they did it very well. It created a super fake astronomy concept. Then I asked about Gemini to explain that concept, and Gemini eventually explained that concept as it was a well-known concept in astronomy. That's the experiment.
So one wonders where it got the information in order to create the answer.
Again, plausibility and probability.
Right.
The most
So,
likely the most likely explanation for that sequence of word, the proto-planar, ring, and so on, in terms of the again the overall language mapping that these models rely upon, the most probable answer to explain that concept, essentially, it was just using the most likely words related to that very, again, astronomy field. Right?
so that's great, and I think this is a great lesson. So my teacher had says to me, I think I would want to try this in even in a middle school or a high school classroom, which is my area. It'd be a great example because it's so detailed, it's so impressive, and you could bring this into a classroom and start a project. I'm thinking that in groups, each group could create several different sophisticated prompts like the one that you created, Paolo.
Yeah.
And
So,
they could look at all of them and see just um, how persuasive this can be. I think that it would be a great digital literacy project, even in the early grades.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone else would like to ask a question of Paolo? Streaming around. Well, Paolo, I think that covers it for us. That was excellent. Thank you so much. There's so many questions that I actually have, but I'm gonna save them for another time so we can keep moving along. Yes, Karen, go ahead. Sorry, go
Ramsey
ahead.
put her hand up. If
I'm sorry, Ramsey. I
still a question.
apologize. Ramsey, go ahead.
And don't worry, I remind myself of something. I teach media ethics, and I've been trying to do the same experiment with my students. So I've been giving them a fake media ethic reporting to the students to judge, for them to judge if where are the media ethic problems. So I've been asking them if this report is okay and does it have any problems in it, and they actually were able to find it out that it was not something it was not okay, but they didn't know what did I do. So it was quite difficult for them to find out where were the mistakes, because ChatGPT was very good on
Persuasive.
creating persuading them that it was really a media report on, for example, on suicides, on different topics that we actually discussed during our class. And it is always that you usually see like media reports that lack on media ethic when they report, for example, for minority rights or uh, suicides or anything else. So it was quite difficult for them to find it out. But Chad was really a master on it. So I agree. They are able to create really fake models that they seem to be. And I think that our challenge in the future will actually be not only to differentiate between facts and manipulation, but it will be really a challenge to differentiate between manipulated facts. Thank you, but it was awesome.
Thank you.
I'm still digesting it.
It was a lot, absolutely. Okay. Anybody else? Just in case I missed it. Sorry, Karen. I definitely didn't see that. Paolo, this was fantastic. I don't know if you're going to want to stay to listen to Michael, but you're welcome.
Yeah, no, I wanted to stay to listen to Michael, and then maybe I leave. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Certainly after, I know that I'd like to talk to you about something else after, so we will talk at that point, but thank you for that. That was excellent. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael. Karen, did you want to add anything? Okay. And Michael, will give you the floor now for your presentation.
Brilliant. Thank you. And thank you, Paolo. That was terrific. And can you see my slide? everybody and hear me. Yes. Perfect. Well, the funny thing is, Paolo and I bumped into each other at a local tourism. It's like a heritage site. It's the Saint Marie among the Hurons. It's an old fort, and we saw one another. And I had this in my pocket. I was just working on the media noodle, and I said, "Paolo, you have to see this." And so now I have a chance to describe it a little bit more slowly. So I've submitted a paper to the Canadian Journal of Communication, and hopefully this will come out soon. So I'm workshopping, right? I'm coming up with a concept and I'm trying to work it with other people. And there's a number of you that were present when I gave an initial brief presentation of this. So apologies to you. Hopefully there's something a little bit extra or new today. And where it's coming from is I'm involved with writing a book. And with a couple of other colleagues, and they're in communications faculties, and I'm in education, and I was asked to start reading Coldry and Hep's book, which is now 10 years old, um, The Mediated Construction of Reality, to begin to to really get an idea of this thing called mediatization, which I'll be talking about today. And what I was reading that, I was in Western Canada, and there's a restaurant called the Noodle Box, and so I have that image for you there. The genesis of this is actually some sort of connection between reading a book and eating noodles, okay? And hence the idea of the media noodle. And the media noodle, it was Belina that suggests, well, actually, noodle is also, a slang word for brain. So it's also the media brain. But it plays with and against, and in a moment I'll show you. It's sort of meant to be a respectful dialogue with the media literacy triangle, which has been used for decades in media education, right? And so you'll see that this is inverted. It's upside down. It's still triangular. And the idea is that this is a Mobius, and so it flows from one area to another, and it introduces some other terms and other ways of discussing or problematizing or situating media and our use of media. But the fourth element there is the media menu, and that's the piece that I will also be sharing today, so that from the noodle, we can create these profiles, and these profiles would be highly elastic. I mean, this is one of the things about it. But I've given you I have in my paper a number of these profiles, and I have one right here, right? So that um, you'll see that the component at the top, inhabiting, we now translate that here as technologies and platforms, right? So what I'm actually, where I am, where I'm situated in the media universe. And then I give two spaces for the old interpreting word. So one for modalities and one for genres. And then I have a fourth site for motives and contexts. So I just want to start you there so you had a point of departure. So here we are with our two, the media noodle and then the media triangle. And I said, this is a respectful, I admire this triangle because of and I think we have worked with it for decades, right? And so this isn't a criticism as much as some form of, like a second version, a version that responds to this moment of mediatization. And I'll be able to, I'm coming back to this in a moment, so I'm just going to sort of bypass it. But just to note that now we're talking about inhabiting media, like we're inhabiting a whole media ecosystem. We're still interpreting, so we're still using all of our hermeneutic effort, or whatever it is that like our capacity to understand, and we're interacting in a much more direct manner. And so you'll see one of the big differences between the two is that meanings is in the triangle in the middle, but here it's meanings and actions. So we're adding that element here. And so yeah, I get back to this the Couldry and Hep material, which is brilliant. And I'm reading now a lot of the Hep material too, his book on figurations, his the deep mediatization work as well. So this is really leading me in a direction, and it's very exciting. I'm perfectly humbled by this situation. Like it's really great. So, here we are. We're profoundly shaped by a continuous interaction and feedback loop. Media is no longer something that's discrete and, in the corner in the living room, for example. with digital tools, formats, and context. It's hard to keep an inventory on the number of ways we're enveloped in what I'm calling the digital cage, but it's also the digital age and the digital cage. So I need to show this, just set some context. We have external influences like the constant surveillance of datafication, right? The extractive data flows, um, corporate ownership. But so, in other words, the private realm there and how it's influencing the outcome, and that's a world that we inhabit. That's actually regulated by a group of corporations. And then some of the technologies that we've allowed in, the microphones on our devices, the smart homes, and then the algorithm and how it has an impact on what we do, the sort of what next, right? And that's one of the tools we invite in. So there's also this, the platforms, the entertainment media, the social media, communication, learning media, shopping media, and I'm calling it the practical getting things done media. Um, all these platforms that a lot of us are using in a number of ways. So, and in this place, we're always multitasking, and it's an infinite variety of options. Okay, and then we make choices, and this connects to the noodles. It also connects to uh, Coldren Hep's media manifold. So it was the media manifold that I was struggling with. I was like, we need a model for this. Like, we need to be able to see this thing, right? So the manifold is a conceptual space that encompasses the almost infinite, many dimensional affordances that media environments offer. And then on the other hand, that reduced selection with which we actualize our interactions. So at that any moment that we draw upon or use the media, we're making a selection and from a broad range, right? So yeah, and so they say that the term manifold suggests multi-layered, constantly shifting dynamic of media flows, platforms, devices, and user practices and an infinite repertoire. So from that repertoire, we select, we make finite choices in specific contextual moments, right? So, and the claim I'm making is that while the everyday use of media looks like a rapid blur of activity, the manifold and then also the media menu slow that down. So it acknowledges that media use is shaped by complex and situated relations between users, devices, platforms, and sociocultural norms. It also emphasizes that media environments are historically and geographically specific. That's actually leading into another area, and it's a I will at some point be putting a circle around the the media noodle to add some material on what Andreas Hepp is calling figurations. But yeah, here's the noodle box, and you go in, you choose your box, then you can substitute your noodle, you can select a protein, your heat level, and then maybe some extras. So I mean, it helped me. Like I thought, yes, here it is. This is the practical thing. So then from the noodle comes the menu. And so I've given you one at the beginning, the commuter scroll, the commuter. And now here's a few more, right? The weeknight learner, the weekend tinkerer, the bedtime browse. And I'd like to point out with the bedtime browse that I thought this is a good time to bring print literacy back into the media fold, like more formally, like that really in the range of options that we have and choices. One of them is to read a book or a Kindle or what have you, right? So all that's happening. And by the way, yeah, some of the background texts that are helping inform this, well, they really are like the Association for Media Literacy's key concepts. It's the Scottish Media Triangle. It's also the multiliteracies work of the mid 90s. And then I noticed that Henry Jenkins just joined us, and it's no stretch that, in fact, the MacArthur Foundation white paper, like I continue to share that with grad students, and it still continues to resonate 20 years later. And it's in there too. And I think especially in the interactions section. And then Doug Keller and Jeff Scher's critical media literacy, and I'm trying to place that now well, it comes around the whole circle, but it is in the interpretation area. And then Media Smarts in the Canada's organization, their digital media literacy concept. So now I'm just, I know that we don't have a lot of time today, so I'm trying to wrap this up really quickly. But I did in my paper add some educational application stuff. So, what's the media noodle do for us? It's it's a heuristic, right? Like it allows us to, as I said, go away from that blur and try to isolate and talk to certain situations and certain uses and contexts. So then, what does that allow educators that we can begin to think about the curriculum? And this is, part of what I hope would come from this is that, uh, it starts to answer that question. Well, so, what can we do? How can we begin to address this? So, we're going to address the media ecosystem, encourage greater awareness of the multimodality and genres of all of the communication products, including, all the media that we use, and explore motives and interaction. And motives, I'm drawing on a book from grad school, right? Like 40 year, 35 years later, who knows what you might need, but Kenneth Burke and A Grammar of Motives and his dramatist Pentad. And that was the one that asked questions of, act, scene, agent, agency, and purpose. And uh, it was also translated as what my dog is really excited about this too. If you could hear him in the background, what, where, who, how, and why, right? So anyway, I'm integrating that. So I'm going to close with these two examples of things that we could do in classrooms, and I think in many cases they are being done, right? So critical infrastructural mapping and a multimodal remix project. Um, and this is, just, I guess these are not for the earliest years, but they're more secondary education project, although the multimodal remix, I think, can be done in a number of different ways at various levels. And I won't read them as tempting as that is, but we're going to open the box of media habits. We're going to somehow get inside that a little bit, and we have to start recognizing some of those languages that are dismissed so readily, like people's uses of memes and emoticons, etc. That material that's going to be really interesting and engaging to work with, and the multimodal remix project. It just makes perfect sense. Like we're doing this already. We're just going to talk about some of the process that we're involved with. And yeah, in closing, I just want to stop here and share, again, this image. And you'll see in the interaction area, I've got acting. It's acting and doing. It's like an active, but there's also active as acting as performance and play. That's sort of MacArthur Foundation speaking. Um, our ethical engagement, our normative engagement, and then affect. So much of what we do and how we do is driven by reactions. As we know and about the recirculation of mis and disinformation, etc. And then relationality, like everything, those relations we depend on, some insights from the people that we know, the circles that we're part of. I think I'm working with Andreas Hepp's idea of figuration, and he talks about nation and family and how these are these circles that, sort of already precondition a little bit some of the ways that we react to the messages around us. But I'm seeing that also in some form of relation to the old subcultures literature and the affinity groups that Henry would talk about a lot. And over in interpreting, it really is Gunter Kress's work that talks about both modalities and genres. Like I was saying, okay, where how can I link these two, right? So that it's not just modalities, but it's actually those the various nuances, the actual communicative strategies we could call the genres, compared to the modalities would be communicative spaces. Um, and then alongside that, we have, some of the ways that we are already fluent in terms of engaging, semiotic interpretation. And then I put criticality as a word to sort of, to at least situate that into this diagram. But the top is very critical, and infrastructure is actually those corporate sponsored spaces. And devices and code, the algorithms live in there. And then, yeah, in general, we're there in the digital age, digital cage. So there we go. Another quick presentation, another fast talker.
And again, packed with so much inside there. So I'm excited to continue working with that. Henry, let's go ahead with you. Let's get the discussion rolling.
Sure, I'm going to have to ask a question and leave fairly shortly after you answer because I've got another meeting to get to, but since I was evoked, I wanted to sort of push it back a little on some of the things that I'm not seeing here. I'm very excited and intrigued by your ideas. It still seems to me it's a bit beholden to a mass media paradigm and not sufficiently engaging with the multi-directional communication environment we're talking about. So I guess what I'm missing is notions of participating in some collective civic community dimension of communication. Most of your examples of communication here are still consumerist examples. And we could debate what belongs under what or whatnot, but to exclude those collective many-to-many systems of communication in talking about the digital moment seems to me misses something that's pretty fundamental coming out of the white paper. And I just wonder what your reaction to that is.
My reaction is, thank you for the input. It's a little bit like a conversation I had with Jeff Scher recently, where he said, "Well, where's this obvious, like how are you positioning this in relation to a normative project?" I, I, I knew this. I would take this out and workshop it and get feedback, but I do have like in the media menu. I have an example of called, it was number 2, the Community Organizers Toolkit. So I did position that, and I just didn't include it in today's presentation. Um, I'm going to drop it right now into the chat.
Yeah,
So,
because to me, even calling it a menu implies I'm ordering from a restaurant, not that I'm in a backyard barbecue where lots of us are cooking at the same time, and I can eat your food and you can eat my food. And I don't mean to say it's all equal. Obviously, imagine a barbecue where we have commercial cooks and amateur cooks coexisting side by side. You still want to account for the presence of the amateur cooks, even if we think that all the advantages rest in the commercial cooks who advertise, who have professional skill, who have better equipment and better ingredients and so forth. So for me, it's not a additive, it's about the core frame. And how do you factor that into the core frame that's shaping everything
yeah,
else? For
yeah,
what it's
yeah,
worth, I have the same ongoing debate with Nick Caldry, who's a friend of mine and who we push each other's buttons sometimes, but in a very generative way.
yeah. I think you're actually pushing me to put something up in the ecosystem. It's that where what do we inhabit? And you're saying we're not in a restaurant, we're actually at a barbecue.
I mean, just to use your
I
food
think,
metaphor, but the backyard
yeah,
barbecue comes closer to the current moment, but one where commercial interest and amateurs exist side by side and shape the relative accessibility of different modes of communication. I think that once we address that, then your model might work, but I think it's at that top level that I'd want to see more factoring into the language. Because all the genres you're using as examples, all the modes, all of your examples come from the world of commercial communication, even
yeah,
if it's the new digital commercial communication. You're
yeah,
counting for platforms, but not what people are doing with platforms. So, for my eyes, media is still something that's happening to people, not something people are doing in this model.
yeah. Okay. Yeah,
But I think
I'm,
you're onto something important, and this is why I want to push you on it, is to because I do think what you're doing really matters. It's just that we have somewhat different starting points and frames. And I think that much of us in the participatory culture realm have not sufficiently accounted for some of the things you're accounting for. So if one could find common ground between those two worlds, that's where a real breakthrough could start to happen.
This is what I was always hope, I would hope, to
We'll
workshop a
reach out
concept.
and let's continue the conversation.
Nice.
I'm
And
sorry not to do it in front of this audience, but I'm due in
no,
front of another audience even as we speak. So,
okay, brilliant. That's great.
okay,
We'll be
take
in
care.
touch. Fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you. Carol, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, quickly. Thank you so much, Michael. This is so very much needed. This really stimulating work you're doing, and it's for me, it's very refreshing. And I speak for AML as well because you know that we're fairly invested in this framework. And we still use it in our AQ courses with teachers, of course, but we always have to teach it with a caveat that the three sides of the triangle are not separate, that that it represents a continuous process. And I think what you've identified too is that audience production side are virtually simultaneous. So I'm trying to, and so you've devised this noodle, which is really fascinating. If you want to show it again, it reminds me of one of those Escher puzzles. If you look at the noodle, was this deliberate? You can't find the beginning and the end of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
Mobius. It's a
it's a
Mobius.
Mobius. Yeah, so I think, and that's fascinating to me that you have represented it in this way because it's all part of the same thing. There's no beginning and end. So what we're seeing, to go back to the audience production aspect of this, is that the audience is simultaneously producing as it's interpreting and responding, and it's a continuous production of meaning. And I think mostly of social media when I think of this process.
Yeah, and the Mobius, it's actually difficult to render it with text, and so I had some other versions of it, but since Paolo's here, I want to mention that there's a type of pasta, and I wish I knew the name today, but there is a one that's not known in North America, but it's an Italian pasta that is Mobius shaped.
Oh, of course, the Italians did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a picture of it. I'll send it over your
So
way.
I'd like to speak at another
Yeah.
time. I'd like to speak with you about this. I think Neil Anderson would be interested in what you've presented here.
I was thinking Neil would be here today, and Neil,
Yeah.
I was also wanting to workshop this with all of you.
Oh, that'd be great.
There's an
He's
interesting number of us that
here
are
for a
here in
minute.
Ontario that we don't talk until we're on an international
Oh,
I
Zoom.
know
Neil's
it's
here.
good. He's here?
Yeah, I don't know if he can.
Okay.
He's on his iPhone,
Oh,
but
okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
because
but he
he's
wasn't.
teaching today. He's supply teaching
okay.
yes.
and said that he would be missing it and could I take notes? So,
I think he was in and out. So he's been at the mirror and then I think he had to step back. So
okay,
that's fine.
Neil. Yeah.
Maybe he'll jump in at a different point. Thank you, Carol. Jeff, did I see your hand up and then down? I didn't know. Nope. Okay. Renee, go ahead.
First of all, thank you, Michael. There's so much here. One thing as I was looking through that I was thinking about all the arguments about kids and phones and in schools and, yes, AI and no AI and this and that. And I just wondered if there's any piece of this that might have a brain neurology response. I mean, I don't know if that fits the models. I love your recollection of all the old things that we were teaching, even back in the day, and I loved your recalling all of that. But I think one of the questions that comes up with all of this is like, what's it doing to us? Our attention spans, our all kinds of things. Like, what can our brains handle when so much of this is going on and all the multimodalities are only more and more pervasive and constant? So I just wondered, it's really a question. Do you think there's any place in this model for something that's about neurological
Mhm.
response and
Well,
capacity and things like
like, yeah, the model is it's almost impossible to write this as an article. I think there's a book here, and I really look forward to that opportunity. But then on the other hand, I don't want to wait for, you see Paolo's beautiful book, I don't want to wait for that moment to actually bring this out and to start talking about it. But affect, it's there, it's in the interactive space. And
Ah,
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm really concerned about the obsession creating, let's call it the time intensive element of it, of certain media practices, right? Like, and because people don't like the word addiction. So, if you come up with time intensive, it's like a softer version. But, kids staying up till 3 in the morning because they have to get to the certain level of a game or what have you. But yeah, it's there. It's the potential is there. It's and are
Or maybe
doing
you
and are
write the
acting.
article and then you do the book.
No, the article is, yeah,
I
it's
mean, you have
done.
the article, right?
Well, it's being reviewed by the Canadian Journal of Communication, and I'm expecting any day to get the reviews back, and I think I'm really happy that I had, like, Henry's intervention right now probably has an impact on something I say in that revision. Um, my conversation with Jeff, who read my paper, thank you, will have an impact on also the revision. And then our conversations in Rome, going to Rome to shop this further. And since there's a number of you here, I'll have to have advanced it to that next level. But I do see a circle going around it with his figurations. Actually, I already have the language for it, like but it's coming from MJ's HEP, so we have to understand all this in relation. But one of the words is framing, one of the words is actors, and another one is forms. They're coming around the side.
Thank you.
anyone else who wants to jump in? Okay. I think, well, it's a little earlier. I don't know, Karen, did you want to add anything?
No, my head's swimming too with lots of things in there.
There was a lot for sure.
Yeah, and I'm intrigued by what Henry is saying, but yet I do see it in there too, but I know it's not, maybe not represented quite, but that's interesting. I mean, I think you almost need a 3D model that's moving. Maybe that noodle needs to be waving and moving around and doing things. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
But it's if it's not apparent, then it's that's underdeveloped, and I
Yes.
really
Yeah.
appreciated that
Yeah,
response.
yeah,
Yeah, that
that's
was really
excellent.
great.
But
Okay.
and Paolo, thank you. That the if you have not joined his community, he sends out reflections. I don't know, weekly, monthly. I've gotten so many of them that I've read that it helps you digest the book in a way because he brings them out in short little formats for you. So do join the community because it's very stimulating. So thank you
Mhm.
for all that you're doing.
Thank
Well, with that, I guess we're going to wrap it up, but I do actually have a request. Paolo, if you could stay behind, I would appreciate it. And Joan, if you would stay behind, I would appreciate it as well. But everybody else, thank you so much for your time and dedication, and we will see you next time for sure.